A trainer told the cafe worker to prove herself in front of clients. Her kick left him speechless. Welcome back to our channel. Today we have an incredible story that will leave you absolutely speechless. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our amazing stories. Also, drop a comment below telling us where you're listening from. We love connecting with our global audience. Are you ready for a story about respect, hidden talents, and the power of never underestimating someone? Let's dive in. The morning rush at Bean and Brew, a popular cafe in downtown Seattle, was in full swing. Steam rose from the espresso machines as baristas moved with practiced efficiency, their voices calling out drink orders over the hum of conversation and clinking cups. The cafe's exposed brick walls and industrial lighting created a warm, urban atmosphere that drew both coffee enthusiasts and business professionals seeking their daily caffeine fix. Maya Chen wiped down the counter with methodical precision, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. At 26, she had been working at the cafe for 8 months, ever since moving to Seattle from Portland. What her co-workers didn't know was that Maya's calm demeanor and graceful movements weren't just natural traits. They were the result of 15 years of rigorous martial arts training. She had earned her black belt in Taekwondo at 18 and had competed nationally before a knee injury forced her to step back from competition. Now, martial arts served as her evening ritual, a way to maintain balance while she figured out her next career move. The cafe job was temporary, a means to pay rent while she studied for her business degree online. Maya, table 12 needs their order taken, called Jennifer, the assistant manager, as she rushed past with an armload of pastries. Maya nodded, grabbing her notepad and weaving through the crowded cafe. The morning clientele was a mix of regulars, tech workers from nearby companies, university students with laptops, and tourists exploring the vibrant Capitol Hill neighborhood. She approached table 12, where a middle-aged businessman sat scrolling through his phone. "Good morning. What can I get started for you today?" Maya asked with a genuine smile. The businessman looked up, noting her professional demeanor and friendly attitude. "I'll take a double shot Americano, extra hot, and that blueberry muffin in the display case," he replied, already returning his attention to his device. As she took his order, Maya noticed a commotion near the front entrance. A group of people in matching athletic wear had entered, led by a tall, broad-shouldered man with an oversized personality that seemed to fill the room. His voice boomed as he gestured animatedly, drawing stares from other customers who were trying to enjoy their quiet morning coffee. This was Derek Morrison, a self-proclaimed fitness guru who ran a popular boot camp program in the city. Derek's ego was as impressive as his social media following, and he never missed an opportunity to demonstrate his supposed expertise to anyone within earshot. His Instagram account boasted over 50,000 followers, and his YouTube channel featured videos of him shouting motivational slogans while pushing clients to their physical limits. His entourage consisted of 6 potential clients, successful professionals who had signed up for his exclusive Executive Fitness Challenge, a premium program that promised to transform both body and mindset. These were CEOs, lawyers, and tech executives who paid premium prices for Derek's abrasive style, believing that his harsh methods would somehow translate into business success. "This is exactly the kind of establishment I'm talking about," Derek announced loudly, spreading his arms wide as if he owned the place. "Look around you. Service industry workers who lack the drive, the determination, the killer instinct needed to succeed in today's competitive world. They've accepted mediocrity, settled for less, given up on their dreams." Maya finished taking the businessman's order and couldn't help but overhear Derek's pompous speech. She had encountered his type before, people who mistook volume for authority and arrogance for confidence. His words carried across the cafe, causing several customers to look up from their conversations with uncomfortable expressions. The businessman at table 12 frowned. "Excuse me, miss," he said to Maya quietly, "but is that guy always this loud? I'm trying to conduct a conference call in 20 minutes. Maya offered an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry about the disruption, sir. I'll see what I can do." She had dealt with difficult customers before, but Derek's presence was creating an entirely different kind of problem. Derek continued his impromptu seminar, his voice growing louder with each word. "You see, my clients here understand what it takes to win. They're warriors, fighters, champions in their respective fields. They don't accept participation trophies or pat themselves on the back for showing up. They demand excellence from themselves and everyone around them. Jennifer, the assistant manager, noticed the growing tension in the cafe atmosphere. The usual morning buzz had shifted into an uncomfortable silence as Derek's voice dominated the space. She approached Maya with a concerned expression, her manager instincts kicking in as she assessed the situation unfolding near the entrance. "What's going on over there?" Jennifer whispered, nodding toward Derek's group. Maya glanced over her shoulder at the fitness trainer, who was now pointing at various customers while continuing his impromptu lecture about success and mediocrity. Some kind of motivational speaker, I think. He's making everyone uncomfortable. Derek's entourage stood around him in a semicircle, some looking embarrassed by their trainer's public display, others nodding along with his every word. Among them was Margaret Thornfield, a prominent Seattle attorney who had signed up for Derek's program after a particularly stressful quarter at her law firm. She shifted uncomfortably as Derek's voice grew louder, realizing that his behavior was drawing unwanted attention. "The problem with this generation," Derek continued, his gestures becoming more dramatic, "is that they've been coddled, told that everyone's a winner, that participation is enough. Look at these cafe workers, probably college graduates with useless degrees, serving coffee because they never learned what real competition looks like." Maya felt her jaw tighten, but she maintained her professional composure. She had heard similar comments throughout her months working at the cafe, usually from customers who assumed that service work was somehow beneath intellectual capability. What they didn't understand was that many of her co-workers were pursuing advanced degrees, supporting families, or building their own businesses on the side. The businessman at table 12 was becoming increasingly agitated. "Miss, I really need to make this call. Can you please ask that gentleman to lower his voice?" Maya nodded, knowing she would have to approach Derek's group diplomatically. Confrontations with difficult customers required finesse, and she had learned to navigate these situations with calm professionalism. As Maya walked toward Derek's group, she could hear him launching into another segment of his speech. "You want to know what separates winners from losers? It's the willingness to prove yourself when challenged. It's about rising to the occasion when someone questions your capabilities. Most people fold under pressure because they've never been tested." Derek noticed Maya approaching and seized the opportunity to demonstrate his philosophy to his paying audience. His eyes lit up with the predatory gleam of someone who had found a perfect target for his demonstration. "Perfect timing," he said, loud enough for the entire cafe to hear. "Here comes the perfect example of what I'm talking about." Maya stopped a respectful distance away, her professional smile firmly in place despite the uncomfortable situation. "Good morning. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've had some complaints about the noise level. Would it be possible to keep the conversation a bit quieter? We have customers trying to work and make phone calls." Derek's grin widened, and he turned to his clients with an expression that suggested he had just been handed a golden opportunity. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I mean about the service industry mindset. Instead of embracing confrontation, instead of rising to meet a challenge, they ask you to quiet down, to conform, to make everyone else comfortable." Margaret Thornfield stepped forward slightly, sensing that Derek was about to cross a line. "Derek, maybe we should just order our drinks and find a table." But Derek raised his hand to silence her, his attention completely focused on Maya, who remained standing calmly despite the growing spectacle. "Tell me something, sweetheart," Derek said, his tone dripping with condescension. "What's your biggest accomplishment in life? What have you done that required real courage, real strength, real determination?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Maya could feel the eyes of the entire cafe focused on their interaction. The other customers had stopped their conversations entirely, some pulling out their phones to record what was clearly becoming a confrontational situation. Jennifer watched from behind the counter, torn between her desire to protect her employee and her fear of escalating the situation with what appeared to be a customer with significant influence. Maya took a deep breath, drawing on the patience and self-control that years of martial arts training had instilled in her. "Sir, I understand you're passionate about your work, but we really do need to maintain a reasonable noise level for all our customers. I'd be happy to help you and your group find a table where you can continue your discussion more comfortably." Derek laughed, a harsh sound that carried across the silent cafe. "Look at this, everyone. The perfect example of conflict avoidance. No fire, no passion, no willingness to stand up and prove her worth. This is what happens when people settle for safe, comfortable jobs instead of pushing themselves to excel." The tension in Bean and Brew had reached a breaking point. What had started as Derek's impromptu motivational speech had evolved into a public humiliation attempt. With Maya caught in the center of his performance, the cafe's regular customers watched in uncomfortable silence, some filming the confrontation with their smartphones, while others simply stared in disbelief at Derek's aggressive behavior. Maya remained composed, but something in her posture had shifted almost imperceptibly. Her weight had settled more evenly on both feet. Her shoulders had squared slightly, and her breathing had become more controlled. These were subtle changes that only someone trained in combat sports would recognize as preparation for potential conflict. Years of martial arts training had taught her to read situations and people, and Derek's escalating aggression was triggering her defensive instincts. "You know what I think," Derek continued, stepping closer to Maya with theatrical confidence. "I think you've never been truly challenged in your entire life. I think you've coasted through everything, taken the easy path, avoided any situation that might require real courage or strength. Am I wrong?" His voice carried the practiced tone of someone accustomed to intimidating others through sheer force of personality. Jennifer had seen enough. She began moving toward the confrontation, but Maya caught her eye and gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. This was a message that Jennifer, who had worked with Maya for months, understood immediately. Maya was handling the situation her own way, and she didn't want intervention yet. The assistant manager hesitated, her phone in hand, ready to call security if needed. Derek's clients were beginning to show signs of serious discomfort. Margaret Thornfield whispered urgently to the man next to her, "This is getting out of hand. We should leave." But Derek was too caught up in his performance to notice his audience's growing unease. His ego had taken control, and he was determined to prove his point using Maya as an unwilling demonstration subject. "Here's what we're going to do," Derek announced, spreading his arms wide as if addressing a stadium full of people rather than a small cafe. "I'm going to give you a chance to prove that you're more than just another service worker going through the motions. I'm going to give you an opportunity to show that you have what it takes to rise above your current circumstances." Maya's expression remained neutral, but her eyes had taken on a different quality, a focused intensity that suggested depths Derek couldn't begin to fathom. "Sir, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I really need to ask you to lower your voice or take your discussion outside. You're disrupting other customers, and that's not fair to them or to my co-workers." Derek's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "There it is again. Always deflecting, always making it about other people, never willing to step up and face a direct challenge. This is exactly the mentality that keeps people trapped in dead-end jobs." He turned to his group with the satisfied expression of a teacher who had just proven a particularly important point. But then Derek made a critical miscalculation. Emboldened by what he perceived as Maya's passivity, he decided to push the confrontation to its logical conclusion. "Tell you what, coffee girl," he said, his voice dripping with manufactured sympathy. "I'm going to give you one chance to prove yourself, right here, right now, in front of everyone." The businessman from table 12 had given up any pretense of conducting his phone call and was now watching the scene unfold with morbid fascination. The university students had lowered their laptops, their attention completely captured by the escalating drama. Even the baristas behind the counter had stopped their work to observe what was clearly building toward some kind of climax. Derek's challenge hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down in an ancient arena. "I want you to demonstrate one thing, just one thing, that shows you have the courage, the skill, or the determination to succeed at something challenging. Anything at all. Physical, mental, doesn't matter. Just prove to all these people that you're more than what you appear to be." Maya looked around the cafe, taking in the faces of the customers, her co-workers, and Derek's increasingly uncomfortable clients. She could see the mixture of anticipation, embarrassment, and curiosity in their expressions. Some hoped she would stand up to Derek, others seemed to expect her to back down, and a few appeared to be enjoying the spectacle regardless of the outcome. "And if I don't?" Maya asked quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the silent cafe despite its low volume. There was something in her tone that made Derek pause for just a moment, though his ego quickly pushed any doubt aside. "Then you prove my point exactly," Derek replied with triumphant confidence. "You prove that you're exactly what you appear to be, someone who's given up on pushing their limits, someone who's accepted mediocrity as their ceiling, someone who will never achieve anything remarkable because they're too afraid to even try." Margaret Thornfield finally stepped forward, her legal training overriding her reluctance to confront Derek directly. "Derek, this has gone far enough. You're creating a hostile environment for this young woman, and frankly, you're embarrassing all of us. We should apologize and leave immediately." But Derek was beyond reason now, intoxicated by his own performance and the attention he was receiving. "No, Margaret. This is exactly the kind of breakthrough moment I've been talking about. This is where transformation happens, when someone is forced to confront their limitations and either transcend them or accept them forever." Maya stood perfectly still for a long moment, and in that silence, something fundamental shifted in the atmosphere of the cafe. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a new quality that made everyone lean forward slightly to catch her words. "You want me to prove myself?" Maya asked. And for the first time since the confrontation began, Derek heard something in her tone that gave him pause. The silence in Bean and Brew stretched like a taut wire, every person in the cafe holding their breath as Maya's question hung in the air. Derek's confident smirk faltered for just a moment as something in Maya's demeanor registered in his subconscious, a subtle shift that his conscious mind couldn't quite identify, but that triggered an ancient survival instinct buried deep in his psyche. "That's right," Derek said, though his voice lacked some of its earlier bravado. "Prove that you're more than just another." But Maya interrupted him with a raised hand, a gesture so commanding that Derek actually stopped mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open in surprise at being silenced so effortlessly. "I'll take your challenge," Maya said calmly, her voice carrying clearly through the cafe despite its conversational volume. "But first, I want to make something clear to everyone here." She turned slightly, addressing not just Derek but the entire room of spectators who had become unwilling participants in this confrontation. "This gentleman seems to believe that a person's worth can be measured by their willingness to engage in public displays of aggression or dominance. He suggested that working in service industry means accepting mediocrity, and that anyone who chooses to de-escalate conflict is somehow weak or lacking in courage." Maya's words were measured and precise, each one landing with the weight of careful consideration. Derek opened his mouth to interject, but Maya continued without acknowledging his attempt to speak. "So what he doesn't understand is that true strength often lies in restraint, that real confidence doesn't require putting other people down, and that the most dangerous people are often the ones who appear the most peaceful." Jennifer watched from behind the counter, her hand still hovering over her phone. She had never seen this side of Maya before, this quiet authority that seemed to command the attention of everyone in the room. The usually soft-spoken barista had transformed into someone entirely different, someone who radiated a calm confidence that was both fascinating and slightly intimidating. "You want a demonstration?" Maya asked, turning back to Derek with a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Fine, but I'm going to set the parameters, not you." She moved to an open area near the center of the cafe, her movements fluid and purposeful. "Everyone please step back and give us some space." The customers and Derek's clients immediately complied, creating a rough circle around Maya and Derek. Margaret Thornfield pulled out her phone, not to record the confrontation, but to have emergency services ready to dial if things went wrong. The businessman from table 12 found himself holding his breath, suddenly regretting his earlier complaints about the noise level. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya announced, her voice now carrying the authority of someone accustomed to teaching and leading. "You're going to hold this menu," she said, picking up a laminated menu from a nearby table, at shoulder height, arm fully extended. "You're going to hold it perfectly still, and I'm going to demonstrate something that will prove whether or not I've accepted mediocrity in my life." Derek's confidence was returning now that he understood the challenge. Holding a menu steady seemed like child's play, and he was certain that whatever Maya had planned would ultimately make her look foolish. "That's it. Hold a menu. Lady, I can hold this thing steady for an hour without breaking a sweat." "We'll see," Maya said simply, taking several steps back to create distance between them. The cafe had fallen into complete silence, except for the gentle hum of the espresso machines and the distant sound of Seattle traffic outside. Even the baristas had stopped their work to watch what was unfolding. Derek raised the menu to shoulder height, his arm locked straight out from his body. Like this is your big challenge. He looked around at his clients with renewed confidence, expecting to see admiration for his physical strength and endurance. Instead, he saw expressions of growing concern and anticipation that suggested they understood something he didn't. Maya stood approximately 8 feet away from Derek, her posture relaxed but balanced. To most observers, she looked like she was simply standing casually, but to anyone with martial arts training, her stance was unmistakably that of a seasoned fighter. Her weight was evenly distributed, her center of gravity was low and stable, and her breathing had become deep and controlled. The challenge, Maya said clearly, is not for you to hold the menu steady. The challenge is for you to hold it steady while I demonstrate a technique that requires 15 years of training, discipline, and dedication to master. The question is whether you can maintain your composure and keep that menu perfectly still when faced with something you've never seen before. Derek's smirk wavered slightly, but his arm remained steady. 15 years of training in what? Yoga? Pilates? Bring it on, sweetheart. I've been in the fitness industry for over a decade. There's nothing you can do that's going to impress me or make me flinch. Maya took a deep breath, and for just a moment, her entire demeanor shifted into something that made several people in the cafe take an involuntary step backward. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable, like watching a house cat suddenly reveal that it was actually a panther in disguise. This, Maya said quietly, is a technique called a hook kick. In Taekwondo, it requires perfect balance, precise timing, and complete control. The movement generates enough force to break boards, but more importantly, it requires the kind of discipline and dedication that can only come from years of commitment to excellence. Without any further warning, Maya exploded into motion. Her right leg swept up in a graceful arc that defied gravity, her body rotating with the fluid precision of a dancer and the controlled power of a trained fighter. The kick traced a perfect semicircle through the air, the tip of her shoe passing within inches of the menu Derek was holding. The hook kick was executed with such precision and control that the rush of air from Maya's foot actually caused the menu in Derek's hand to flutter slightly, despite his arm remaining rigid with shock. The entire movement had taken less than 2 seconds, but it seemed to unfold in slow motion for everyone watching. Maya's foot had passed within a hair's breadth of the menu before she brought her leg down in a controlled descent that demonstrated absolute mastery over her body and movement. Derek stood frozen, his arms still extended, the menu trembling now not from any external force, but from the involuntary shaking that had begun in his hand. His face had gone pale, and his mouth hung open as his brain struggled to process what he had just witnessed. The cocky fitness trainer, who had been dominating the cafe with his loud voice and aggressive personality, had been rendered completely speechless. The silence that followed was deafening. Every person in Bean and Brew seemed to be holding their breath, processing the incredible display of skill and control they had just witnessed. Margaret Thornfield slowly lowered her phone, her legal mind already calculating the implications of Derek's behavior and its consequences. The businessman from table 12 found himself spontaneously applauding, a slow clap that gradually built into enthusiastic appreciation. That, Maya said calmly, as if she had just demonstrated how to make a latte rather than executing a perfect martial arts technique, is what 15 years of dedication looks like. That's what happens when someone commits to excellence, not for show, not for social media, not to intimidate others, but for personal growth and self-discipline. Jennifer emerged from behind the counter, her expression a mixture of awe and pride. She had always known Maya was special, but she had never imagined anything like this. Maya, that was absolutely incredible. I had no idea you were trained in martial arts. Her voice carried the excitement of someone who had just discovered that their co-worker was secretly a superhero. Derek's clients began to murmur among themselves, their conversations a mix of embarrassment about their trainer's behavior and amazement at Maya's demonstration. Several of them approached Maya directly, apologizing for Derek's conduct and expressing genuine admiration for her skills and composure throughout the confrontation. "Miss, I owe you an apology," said Margaret Thornfield, extending her hand to Maya. "I'm Margaret, and I'm mortified by what just happened here. Derek's behavior was completely unacceptable, and your response was nothing short of remarkable. The way you handled that situation with such grace and control speaks volumes about your character." Derek slowly lowered his arm, the menu still clutched in his shaking hand. The transformation in his demeanor was complete and devastating. The loud, aggressive persona had evaporated, leaving behind a man who suddenly understood that he had just humiliated himself in front of paying clients by underestimating someone based on superficial judgments. I didn't know," Derek stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. For the first time since entering the cafe, he seemed to grasp the magnitude of his mistake. He had built his entire business model around the idea that aggressive confidence and loud motivation were signs of strength, but Maya had just demonstrated that true power often came in quiet, controlled packages. Maya picked up a napkin from a nearby table and handed it to Derek, who was still visibly shaken. "The lesson here isn't about martial arts," she said gently, her voice carrying no trace of malice or triumph. "The lesson is about respect, about not making assumptions about people based on their jobs, their appearance, or their willingness to avoid confrontation." She gestured around the cafe, indicating the other employees who had been watching the entire exchange. "Every person working here has their own story, their own skills, their own dreams and accomplishments. Jennifer over there has a master's degree in literature and writes poetry in her spare time. Carlos behind the espresso machine is a classically trained pianist who performs with the Seattle Symphony on weekends. We're not here because we've accepted mediocrity. We're here because life is complex, and sometimes you do what you need to do while pursuing other goals." The businessman from table 12 stood up and walked over to Maya. "Miss, I don't know your name, but I run a consulting firm here in Seattle, and I've never seen anyone handle a difficult situation with more professionalism and grace. If you're ever interested in discussing career opportunities outside the service industry, I'd be honored to speak with you." He handed her a business card, his respect evident in his tone and demeanor. Derek's remaining clients were already heading toward the exit, several of them canceling their enrollment in his program via text messages that Derek could see arriving on his phone. Margaret Thornfield was the last to leave, but not before addressing Derek directly. "Your contract with our law firm is terminated, effective immediately. We'll be recommending that our colleagues avoid your services, and frankly, you should consider whether your approach to motivation is helping or harming the people who trust you with their fitness goals." As the cafe began to return to normal, customers resuming their conversations and the baristas getting back to work, Maya simply picked up her notepad and returned to table 12 to check on the businessman's order. "I'm so sorry for the delay, sir. Your Americano should be ready in just a moment, and that blueberry muffin is on the house for your patience." Derek remained standing in the middle of the cafe for several more minutes, the menu still in his hand, processing the complete reversal of his expectations. When he finally moved toward the exit, he paused at the counter where Maya was working. I'm sorry," he said quietly, placing the menu on the counter. "I was wrong about everything." Maya looked up from the espresso machine and offered him a genuine smile. Apology accepted. "And Derek? Real strength doesn't require putting other people down. Maybe consider building people up instead of tearing them down. You might be surprised by how much more effective that approach can be." As Derek left Bean and Brew, the cafe settled back into its normal rhythm. But something had fundamentally changed. The customers who had witnessed Maya's demonstration looked at the entire staff with new respect and curiosity. Jennifer found herself fielding questions about her poetry, and Carlos mentioned his upcoming symphony performance to several interested customers. Maya finished preparing the businessman's order and delivered it with her usual professional smile. But now everyone in the cafe understood that there was much more to their server than met the eye. The lesson of the morning was clear. Never underestimate anyone, because you never know what hidden strengths, skills, and stories lie beneath the surface of everyday interactions.